The smaller birds were at the window now. He recognized the light tapping of their beaks and the soft brush of their wings. The hawks ignored the windows. They concentrated their attack upon the door. Nat listened to the tearing sound of splintering wood and wondered how many million years of memory were stored in those little brains, behind the stabbing beaks, the piercing eyes, now giving them this instinct to destroy mankind with all the deft precision of machines. Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Book Time with Elvis. And that was an excerpt from a book I started last night, actually. And some of you might be able to guess what it was. Let me see if I can bring up the cover for you. And it is Daphne du Maurier's The Birds and Other Stories. And I've read only The Birds so far, which is the first story, and it's not very long. It's only about 40-something pages, if that. And as you can tell from that, it's kind of, I can't say it's particularly scary, but it is a bit suspenseful and, thrilling, I suppose. And I'm really enjoying it. So this is a Sunday summary, just to give you an update of what I read in the past week or so and what I'm reading. So I am reading this book, The Birds and Other Stories by Daphne du Maurier, and I'm certainly looking forward to the other stories. Having read some reviews of the book online, it seems I'm in for a treat with regards to a couple of the other stories as well. So there are 6 in that edition. I'm also reading, or still going through, The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I hope to finish that probably this week. For Victober, I'm still reading, let me see if I can grab it out here. I'm only going by what I've got to hand. Still reading Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore and thoroughly enjoying that. We're doing two chapters a day. I've fallen a little behind by a day or so. I'm on something like chapter, what am I on now? Chapter 18, I think. And it's fantastic. It really is. I mean, a few of the people in our group, because we're reading it in a Voxer group, find the style a bit strange, and I agree with that. He does seem to kind of say very little by saying a lot, if that makes sense. So what he wants to convey could be done in a simple sentence, and he might take a paragraph. That was certainly an observation from Tilly at Tilly's Shelf. And I agree with that, although it doesn't detract rather from the pleasure that I'm getting from reading that. I'm also reading SPQR by Mary Beard, the history of ancient Rome, with Very Literary Carrie, who's hosting a reading event of that. And that's also really good. In terms of what I've finished in the past week, I have finished... what have I finished? Yes, The Castle at Otranto by Horace Walpole. Horace Walpole being the son of Robert Walpole, who was or is regarded as the kind of first Prime Minister of Britain, I suppose. England? Britain, maybe, yeah. I think so. Well, I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong. It was published in 1850, and it was good. I read it because I'm doing this kind of gothic readathon with Vin at Revenant Reads, and he's just kind of put out a video about it, which I'll link. Well, he's mentioned it in his latest video, which I'll link below. We're going to be reading Vathek by William Beckford at the end of this month, and he'd already read The Castle at Otranto, so I wanted to kind of catch up because he's got a list of books he'd like to read, and I said I'd come along for the journey. Horror isn't particularly my thing, but I am interested in the gothic novels, I suppose, and I'm not sure what to make of The Castle at Otranto. I enjoyed it. It was fun, but it was weird. It was weird in the sense that I don't know if it's just because of its age and when it's written, but I kind of found it more like a play, although it was very over dramatic The characters are extremely overdramatic. Um, Now I don't know whether, because it's not set in 1750, it would be set back in the days of knights in shining armor and things like that. So perhaps he was trying to make it seem older by putting in a lot of thous and these and that kind of thing. But then there was some comic elements. I don't know if they were meant to be comic, but certainly I found myself amused at times. And there was, of course, a kind of threatening, dark undercurrent to the novel. And I guess, it's a kind of horror isn't the right word, because I wasn't scared at all in any shape or form. I found the birds more menacing, to be honest. But there was certainly something there. I could see how it's, a book that is an early, perhaps an early example of the horror genre, and certainly lays some foundations, perhaps. But I enjoyed it. I think I only gave it about 3 stars. That's because it was good, but it wasn't fantastic. So I'm hoping that Vathek by Beckford will be a little bit more chilling, perhaps, especially as autumn closes in. So we'll see. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to reading some of the other books on that list as well. And the other book I finished this week was The Diary of a Nobody, which we're reading as part of our Humorous Book of the Month Club on Voxer. Diary of a Nobody is a very short book. It's written by George Grossmith and illustrated by his brother Whedon Grossmith. And I found it charming. I found it really charming. I thoroughly enjoyed it. To my mind, it was too short. I kind of wish it was part of a series. I could have kept reading forever. I really enjoyed it. I love the main character, Charles Pooter, and his wife Carrie and their relationship together. I like the horrible son that they've got together. He's kind of amusing, although I'd like to slap him a few times as well, to be honest. And it was just fascinating to me because it really gives you an insight into home life of a middle-class Victorian family, and it isn't like you would expect. We're led to believe that Victorians are so uptight and uncaring, perhaps, and don't show their emotions and that kind of thing, whereas it wasn't like that at all. It was sweet, and there was love in that family and between the friends, and it was really great, and I recommend it to anyone. As such a short read, it's well worth it. With regards to George Grossmith, though, I had to look him up because I'd come across him a couple of times in Jerome K. Jerome's autobiography, author of 3 Men in a Boat, and I wanted to look him up after reading this, and I was fascinated to find that he kind of created 9 characters in Gilbert and Sullivan's comic operas, including Sir Joseph Porter from HMS Pinafore, the Major General in The Pirates of Penzance, to name just a couple of them. So, I'm a huge fan of Gilbert and Sullivan, so it was really interesting for me that he did create these characters, that he first performed them, and it's really great. And I was surprised as well to see that he had written 18 comic operas himself, as well as over 600 songs and piano pieces, which is quite funny, because, he's not regarded as anything today apart from the author of this book, I suppose. But I mean, there are worse things to have as your legacy. But what I really liked was that there's an excerpt in one of the books. I shall read it to you. It says, "I spent the evening quietly with Carrie, of whose company I never tire. We had a most pleasant chat about the letters on 'Is Marriage a Failure?' It has been no failure in our case. In talking over our own happy experiences, we never noticed that it was past midnight. We were startled by hearing the door slam violently. Lupin had come in. Lupin's their son. He made no attempt to turn down the gas in the passage, or even to look into the room where we were, but went straight up to bed, making a terrible noise. I asked him to come down for a moment, and he begged to be excused, as he was dead beat, an observation that was scarcely consistent with the fact that, for a quarter of an hour afterwards, he was positively dancing in his room and shouting, "See me dance the polka," or some such nonsense. Because I later found out that this "See Me Dance the Polka" was a real song, and it was actually a song written by George Grossmith, who wrote that book. So I think that's really cool that he kind of references himself, the author references himself through his characters, and kind of takes the mick out of himself as well. So yeah, so that's it. That's my short summary of what I've been reading this week, what I finished reading this week, and you can gather from that as well what I've got to continue reading in the coming week. So I hope you're all very well, and look forward to seeing you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.